Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel session, The Future of Live Sports, How Accelerated Digital Transformation is Changing the Game. My name is John Brahms. I'm the Senior Director of Venue in Sports and Entertainment here at Extreme Networks, and I'll be leading today's discussion. We appreciate everyone tuning in. I think this is a topic that everyone's interested in, whether you actively participate in sports and entertainment, or if you're just a fan. I think everyone's going to enjoy the conversation. Like many industries, live sports are going through similar challenges. And we're working together to try to find ways to move forward. And like everyone else, COVID-19 is bringing a whole different set of challenges. In our session today, the guest speakers are going to discuss technology requirements, digital use cases, and emerging trends for the future of live sports. These topics are going to be wide, from health and safety demands, fan and guest expectations, reconfigured operations and how we're dealing with that, mobile services and enhancements, immersive and unique experiences. These are all things that are challenges. Before we jump into the content, I'd like to introduce the thought leaders that we've invited to our panel. The first person I'd like to introduce is Steve Inman, who's the VP of Technology at the Chicago Cubs. Steve, can you give us a little background and history with the Cubs?
Sure. Thanks for having me, John. I've been with the Cubs now for 8 seasons. Started in 2012, where I started on the business side to ramp up the first software development team across the business. About a little over a year ago, I took over all of technology, where I'm running everything from the infrastructure team to software development on the business, over to our service desk and our audio video engineers across all of our video board technology.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. I'd also like to introduce John Martin. He's the VP of Media and Event Technology at NASCAR. John, can you give us a little background as well?
Yeah, I've been with NASCAR corporate now for almost 14 years. Prior to that, I was with Turner Broadcasting, also working on sort of the NASCAR broadcasts. So been around the sport and seen a lot of changes over the 20 years. Within NASCAR, I've had a bunch of different roles. One was project managing the build out of our studios within Charlotte, our studio complex we built there. Then got involved in some of our digital rights and how we brought those back in-house, and some of the databases we built. And now recently, events technology, what we're doing from a technology standpoint at the venues. So it's been a great experience.
Thanks, John. Gentlemen, I appreciate you joining us today. So prior to jumping in a little bit about the future technologies, let's talk about pre-COVID. Life did exist before COVID. So I think it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives and challenges that each one of you faced. I know, for example, both of you have taken on implementations of Wi-Fi, high-density Wi-Fi in your environments. And certainly each one of you have a unique set of challenges, either be it with a racing with their infrastructure or a very historical ballpark. So Steve, why don't we start there and let's talk about some of those challenges, some of those initiatives you had prior to COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started, we had a very dated stadium. We had very legacy technology. We didn't have anything that was really enterprise level. So the Wi-Fi project, as you referenced, was one of the first big kind of shifts that we had in a paradigm of how all of this worked. So in 2015, we put Extreme Networks in place, and it was a multi-phased project because of all of the renovation and construction that was going on at Wrigley Field. When you really look at what we were focused on coming into this year, it was, we had built all of these new businesses and entities, and the Cubs is the centerpiece, but we have this campus with a hotel and restaurants and our new office building and our rooftops and all of these other businesses going on around. One of the big things that we kind of had in flight was figuring out how to do stuff a little bit more efficiently now. So it's kind of ironic that when one of our major goals was how to automate more and become more efficient after this big build out across the organization, that all of this happened, which is almost a really good business case to force a lot of that automation and efficiency that, all industries are doing now.
Yeah, thank you. John, you want to speak to that as well within your environment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the technology, what we're focused on pre-COVID and post-COVID is still kind of the same, but clearly pre-COVID, we had a lot of initiatives that were, focused on fans and the fan experience and how we were going to upgrade that fan experience, especially when you come to a NASCAR track. So when you think of coming to Daytona and Phoenix, places we've just put in some really great new technology, much different experience than going to some of our other tracks like Martinsville, which is still like that old-time NASCAR feel. But I think we're still focused really on what the fan experience is going to be. We had to pivot, obviously, with COVID when you're not putting as many fans in the seats, if you're getting fans at all. But it really speaks to what even Steve said. You've got to get a really good Wi-Fi experience for fans who come. You want to make sure the technology is seamless and makes their movements within the facility a lot easier. So that's really where we were prior to COVID. Still focused on that. Just obviously had to pivot a little bit here in 2020.
Sure, that makes sense. I think we always talk about Wi-Fi and connectivity in the converged network as being the plumbing, if you will, for any of those initiatives you're going to take on. And I think that's true prior to COVID, and I think it's now true, let's call it in the COVID days. So let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, baseball games are being played. There's racing back. It's a very different environment. Some are with fans, some without. John, can you start us there? I know a ton of work was put into place and probably projects you didn't even anticipate to get racing back online. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I might use the rest of the time if I got into too many of the details. But yeah. You really had to break it down into a couple of scenarios, really. One, you needed to get the competitors back. So in getting the competitors back, we had to set up a lot of protocols, and it was such an unbelievably well-orchestrated cross-functional team throughout the entire organization to get that done. So as you can imagine, from legal all the way down to just the officials, I mean, it was an amazing undertaking. So you had to make sure the garage was pristine. So you have to make technologies of how do you get the drivers in there? How do you keep them safe while they're in there? How do we continue to test them every day they come back? All of those protocols were unbelievable. And then we morphed that into, okay, what do we do when we bring fans back as well? So we really had two separate situations going on where you had to use the technologies to screen people coming into the facility who are the participants, separated from the people who might be fans. And I think the other thing we really focused on was just the remote nature of things that you had to focus on. Who would have ever thought you'd have, on-air talent calling a race while they're not at the race? And those are things that, you always knew were possible, but really accelerated for us, and we had to take good care to make sure that could still happen, as well as the media who come, and they want to have a certain experience. Hey, you can't come now, but we had to set up remote live media centers for them that they could still feel like they were at the facility and do their jobs while being remote. So a lot of challenges, but proud of what we got accomplished.
Yeah, it's impressive. Steve, I'm sure you've gone through some similar things, although I would expect there's some differences as well. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a really unique situation. If you look back to when this all went down, as John was talking about the protocols that are put in place, I think that's a huge part. And, the kudos to our baseball operations and facilities and security team, as well as our stadium operations team, who were so critical in not only getting all of those protocols pulled together, but enforcing them. And that's been the top thing. From that side, we're almost here to help, but they're really the ones who are putting that in place and running it all out. The cool things that we had is we had Lakeview Pantry, which is a food pantry pretty close to the stadium, that started using Wrigley Field's concourse before the games came back to play as a distribution center, because they had so many people that needed their services, and we had a lot of space that they didn't have. So we were able to light them up on Wi-Fi and do all of these, power needs and all of this, as well as give them a somewhat controlled environment that had plenty of space for them to go. That also allowed us to see how all of this stuff worked, getting people through Even though it was a smaller footprint, there was so many protocols to go through. And then you look at it now, we don't, like John, have stadium or arenas full like they do, but we are one of the unique situations in sports where we have up to 20% of fans on our rooftops. And it's, just having protocols around that, making sure that we're following all the stuff, working with the city, getting all of those pieces kind of moving forward has been a great kind of a pilot, I would say, for when we do get the green light to have fans back in Wrigley.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear about public-private partnerships like that, Steve, that, you never thought that Wrigley Field would ever be used in that capacity, but it's amazing to hear that partnerships form like that real time to help people out. In terms of COVID itself, are there projects and initiatives, and Steve, I'll start with you, that have come to be highlighted to say, well, maybe we're thinking about this and now we're going to accelerate this, or vice versa, where there are projects to say, hey, maybe this isn't important for us right now. Let's take a look at that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is definitely not my line or my quote, but something that I read early on was the level of adoption and the speed at which you could actually go end to end on a project has just shrunk so much during this. What would take, 2 to 3 years to get buy-in, go through requirements, build something, get approvals and sign off, and then actually get adoption through someone is now taking months, or in some instances weeks. And you're able to push a bunch of new things out there without, a lot of negative adoption feedback, because people are almost accustomed to this rapid change that's happened. Usually people's ability to make change or consume change comes with time. Usually you need that year, you need a little bit. I think that this has just raised the ability to push change, get adoption at such rapid paces that a lot of things that we thought probably were a little ways out. A great example there is kind of the cashless transaction within a stadium. I think it's much closer, and we have very aggressive timelines to really make that a reality for when we can bring people back into Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've seen a ton of activity both with, cashless payment and then contactless entry, right? Or ticketless entry. And there's been, particularly on the collegiate side, which is interesting because a lot of the infrastructure isn't in place. There's been a lot of activity about building out infrastructure to support that, providing extra capacity at the gates to support that, et cetera. John, anything from your side that you can speak to related to that?
I'd probably echo the exact same points that Steve made. We were so proud of being the first sport back, with live events. But it really took that cooperation, things that took longer to get approved. The whole industry came together. And it was really great to see things, as he said, that would take lots of deliberation and conversation to get approved or accept. Everyone said, hey, if we're going to get back to racing, this is what we want to do. This is what has to happen. And these are the technologies you're going to have to work with to do it. You're going to have to get screened, and you're going to have to make sure we know who you've come in contact with. So those things have really helped us. Contact us, of course, when you get back into the venues, it's going to get streamlined for us as well. The only other thing I'd say, not so much for the venue, but such a unique, great thing for NASCAR was when we weren't racing, but we were just doing it virtually, with our iRacing product. Esports for NASCAR took off in those few months and have continued to grow for us. It almost gave us an opportunity that we wouldn't have focused on, something that was there that we hadn't focused on that now came to the forefront and became an unbelievably great success story for us. And one of the great things we just had happen, William Byron just won in Daytona this past weekend, and he started as an e-racer before actually getting in the car. So it really highlighted that sort of avenue and platform for us that we have that's very unique to the sport of racing.
Yeah, that's impressive, John. And I think that's a whole other area, and it's a good transitional topic to start thinking about, because of COVID, what are the other sort of IT initiatives that are maybe outside the venue that you guys have started to take a look at? I think that's a great example. Are there other interactive, immersive technologies that you're looking at to sort of expand the experience beyond the venues? And John, any comment on that?
Yeah, I think, it sort of talks to something I've seen, of course, in all my years watching sports, the at-home experience versus the in-venue experience. How different is that? How much do you really want people to enjoy sitting on their couch and not coming out to the ball game? And what's the value proposition when you do come out to the racetrack or the ballpark? That's been a fine line to walk. So I think we've always had a lot of technology you can use when you're at home for NASCAR. The car itself gives off so much data, and getting the data off that car into, whether it's your handheld device, whether it's your laptop, whether it's whether it's through even your TV at home, that has shown us that we may need to accelerate that sort of technology. Because what we found was there were a lot of folks from the teams who couldn't get to the track because they weren't cleared to be in the garage in that sort of pristine environment to keep in the garage, who needed certain data points to do their job from Concord or Charlotte. And you saw a lot of command centers being built there with all the data that's coming. So those were some things sort of outside the venue that I think are going to accelerate and become more common for either doing your job or for fans at home.
Yeah, for sure. It's always about expanding the, let's call it the game day or race day experience, right? Hopefully it starts earlier. Hopefully it goes longer as well. Steve, I know certainly in the case of Wrigley, the game day experience is expanding certainly beyond the ballpark, right? It's in the buildings around, but are there other sort of technologies that you're looking at or the league's looking at to expand that experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we've had a pretty unique situation this year with all the timing of this. We launched our new TV network, Marquee Sports Network, this season. So doing all the stuff to help them to get a smooth launch, which, they launched on time, but then their first opening day was obviously much later than planned. But we also ripped apart our press box this off season. So when you look at all of the connectivity and technology that was involved in those projects alone, to get those ready to go by what we thought was going to be opening day, and then to push off was a pretty time consuming and a lot of work to get that pulled off. When you start to look at the fan at home, you have Major League Baseball with different technologies like At-Bat and their other apps out there that they really expanded pretty rapidly to kind of leverage and take advantage of the fact that the fans weren't in there. And I think it's been an interesting dynamic. John, you made the comment about, how much do you want to make it comfortable when you obviously have, the Cubs, we actually have close to 75% of our revenue is game day related at the stadium or on our campus, which, is why obviously it's been such a struggle of a year for us. But when you really look at that, you talk to people who are excited that the games are going on, and it's great to see it on the new network, but everyone follows that up with, I can't wait to get back there. And I think that's just the kind of the piece to make it great in both experiences, with what we've been able to do with the new TV network and what the league has been able to do with their interactive fan apps, and then what we're looking to kind of pull off as we move into 2021 when we can, actually welcome fans back. I think it's a really good mix where you can keep a lot of different types of fans and locations of fans really excited about what we have going on.
Yeah, that sounds exciting, Steve. And speaking of fans coming back in 21, if we could spend a little bit of time talking about that, I think the difficult thing, certainly with one of many difficult things with COVID is planning, is how do you plan for all these different scenarios? Is it going to be 10%, 100% fans back? Can you guys address that a little bit from a technology perspective as you start to look to increase the number of fans? And some of the initiatives you're taking, some of the planning steps you're taking now, either for it to be further in the season or down the road for next season. Just speak about some of those initiatives you're taking on from an IT perspective. And Steve, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, our ticket operations team has been working closely with one of their close vendors to really look at what those seating manifests look like, not just in, kind of where it's at right now with a very limited to no fans, but all of the possibilities where it could be if we get a 50% approval or whatever that is, just running out all of those situations. From a planning perspective, we're planning to have, a full stadium by the start of next season. We this year ran out many budget plans from the standpoint of what it looked like with no fans, or what would it look like if we had partial season with no fans and partial season with fans. So I think we're able to leverage a lot of those areas that we were able to reduce our expenses to save money, and then really look at where we want to be, assuming that we can get fans in. And obviously that's going to be dependent on the state, on the city, on the vaccines and all those pieces. But everything that we're running forward is that we're going to have fans in the stadium, and we want to make it, I think you pulled it up or talked about it in congruence with cashless. You have the contactless entry. We are lucky in the standpoint that we have a huge adoption of digital tickets. We've stopped printed home tickets a few years back. So we're really looking at more of where are the bottlenecks right now for that entry. If we have a heavy majority that we think we can get to 100% digital ticketed already, now you look at metal detectors. We can get about 200 people an hour through each metal detector. In order to not kind of bottleneck on that, we're looking at other opportunities that we can get a lot more people through. Once you get into the stadium, obviously you talked about cashless, but there's the mobile ordering aspect of it. So people being able to order from their seat if they do go into the concourse or do a transaction with a hawker that we have at Wrigley, to make it as seamless as possible and to pull all this stuff off. That each use case that I talked about has different intricacies, has different technologies in place. So really running through all those different things and having them ready so that when 2021 hits and we do get the green light to have the fans back, that experience is just another notch above where it was previously.
Yeah. Can't wait to be there. John, do you want to speak to that a little bit too, about some of your planning and contingency planning, if you will, for upcoming and bringing those fans back?
Yeah, again, we've been lucky that we've been able to bring some fans back this year already in certain states, and have had to tackle a lot of those technology challenges, as we talked about, very quickly. I think the interesting thing about NASCAR, again, the weekend sport, the fact that it's, people come, it's almost like their vacation, and you come for days on end. So I think it's that sort of, it's the camping that people do when they come out, or, what they're expecting from a day-long event to come out to the stadium. So it really, one of the big initiatives we're still focused on is that in-venue experience, that even around the track experience. For those people who are outside having fun before they come into the race, it's focused really on Wi-Fi and the bandwidth that we can drive there. A project we're partnering with Verizon and working with your folks at Extreme. So those are the big initiatives we're still focused on. And the other thing I would just dovetail in there, as you talked about sort of planning for it, I found the role of the technologist in the company is changing, because you're part traffic cop, you're part accountant, you're part, a business lead at times. You've got to take on so many more things because the technology is so critical to what's going to happen in the venue, getting people in the venue, keeping them safe, making sure it's still a great experience. The technology role is really morphing within, it's clearly a league, and I'm sure a team and a venue as well.
Yeah, well said, John. The many hats each one of us wears. So I was thinking we could wrap this up, and I'll put each one of you guys on the spot. And if we look three or 4 years out from now, I would ask, each one of you to maybe put a bold prediction out there on something that might happen from a technology perspective or from a game day experience, something that maybe we're not even thinking about, or something that is different from today. So, John, we'll start with you, put you on the spot. 4 years from now, any bold predictions from your side?
Oh gosh, I'm old enough. I remember when the mascot coming out onto the court was a big deal. At the entertaining of the fans at the venue, beyond just the competition that they're watching, is interesting to me, and it's still changing. So, we all know the social experience of going out to a venue is what's critical to people. I think, I don't know if this is a bold prediction, I think gambling or fantasy or wagering within a facility is fundamentally going to be changed the way people experience the competition that they're watching, or the event that they're watching at the track. I think that's going to be push us all to have more venue, faster technology, because when there's a bet on the line, you better make sure you got it right.
Yeah, well said, John. Agreed. Steve, anything from your end?
Yeah, I think I agree a lot with what John just said, but I think the augmented reality and virtual reality opportunities, especially as the processors within people's hands continue to grow and what they can actually do, and something like an augmented reality experience right now that's so battery draining. I mean, you look 2 or 3 years out, that's a lifetime in technology and what they can bring to the table. So people are going to be able to do so many more things from that perspective. And then if you look, at the legislation that's changed in Illinois alone since the beginning of the year, exactly what John said, all of the gambling changes, the daily fantasy, all of that, you almost look at this super connected in-person experience rather than, I think what a lot of the focus has been on recently has been when you're at home, how do you get that virtual experience like you're in the stadium? And I think that with all of these play-by-play opportunities and, all these digital opportunities, it's almost going to bleed into the in-fan experience. And I think it's going to make it such more of a digital experience when you're actually in person than it is right now.
I'm going to steal that one. Super connected fan experience. That's well said.
Yeah, we like that. We'll trademark that. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This was great. We appreciate the time. Lots of insight. It's great to hear, and I think we're all excited to get everyone back to these events. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.